When Rudolf Hess witnessed Maria Orsic as she channeled his deceased friend Dietrich Eckart, he became convinced that she was the real deal. Rudolf Hess had served time in prison with Adolf Hitler, and they knew each other well. It's presumed that it was Hess who told Hitler about Maria Orsic, her channeling sessions with the light beings of Aldebaran, and most importantly, her flying discs. Famed scientist Winifred Schumann recognized that the flying saucer plans, channeled by Maria, closely resembled the work of Austrian scientist Viktor Schauberger. It was just after Hess revealed what Maria Orsic was really up to that the Germans essentially kidnapped Schauberger and put him to work on the German flying saucers. But who was Viktor Schauberger, and what did he discover?
Viktor Schauberger was an Austrian inventor who worked actually during World War II with the Third Reich. And he's well known for his vortex mechanics. And he worked a lot with water vortexes. He was early on very interested in the way water purified itself in streams through natural swirling and whirlpools and things. And so the whole idea of what we would call vortex technology, and in a sense using water in this case, was really pioneered by Viktor Schauberger.
Viktor Schauberger created an amazing vortex technology. He actually analyzed and studied fish in a stream. He noticed that trout were able to stand still in a moving stream because of the vortex of the water flow over their body. He analyzed the same exact thing in salmon who were swimming upstream. This vortex flow of water over the fish's body gave him the concept and idea to create a vortex-based technology that was fundamentally based off of pulling instead of pushing. So his actual technology would allow you to be pulled through space instead of pushing against space. Viktor Schauberger's egg-shaped vortex-based engine became critically acclaimed. Eventually, a corporate conglomerate kidnapped him, brought him to another country, forced him to sign over the rights to his invention in order for him to get back to his family. When they did release him back to his family, he was found dead 5 days later.
Schauberger invented a number of unusual items and devices, including a flying saucer kind of device that worked as a vortex, sort of flying tornado vortex, similar to a gyro also. It's curious with Schauberger's devices in that it's quite possible that an aircraft, particularly a flying saucer kind of aircraft, could actually be powered by water as the vortex.
The issue regarding the Nazis and their flying saucer research is there is a basis in fact here. You know, we all know now that there were certain German scientists during World War II, I think most prominently Viktor Schauberger, who were doing very interesting, let's say brilliant, let's say even genius level work on disc-shaped airframes. Schauberger was a self-taught genius who was then commandeered by the SS to work for them during the war. He did create disc-shaped craft. They were tested.
In my mind, you have a similar thing with Viktor Schauberger as with the ancient Hindu texts on Vimanas, which talk about Mercury being part of the power system of these ancient craft. And supposedly using Mercury would be also in a kind of a Schauberger type vortex, but you'd be using Mercury instead of water. And Mercury has many unusual qualities. It's an element, it's a metal, it's a liquid, it's a conductor. You can do things with Mercury that you can't really do with any other metal or liquid or element, really. And that would be creating things like Mercury gyros. And a Mercury gyro would then be a sealed gyro with Mercury inside it, moving as a liquid in a vortex and gyroscopic kind of action. And then if you were to introduce electricity into that gyro of Mercury, you would electrify that Mercury and it would become a plasma, an electrified gas that's spinning in a toroidal or gyroscopic type movement. And scientists have used gyroscopes for years as an example of artificial gravity and anti-gravity. So in a sense, a craft that's using this kind of vortex technology, especially one with Mercury, is a very viable kind of flying saucer type craft. And the other interesting thing about such a craft like that is that once you introduced electricity to the Mercury vortex, it's going to light it up, and the thing will be extremely bright. So if you were to see this thing flying, it would be much as many UFOs are described, where they are this spinning top kind of gyro thing that's also very brightly lit, sometimes with even lights that are flashing or flickering or spinning along the edge of the craft. And this is exactly how a Mercury gyro would really look like and act like.
Well, the Germans were mounting expeditions all over the world in the 1930s because they were looking primarily for mystical devices. You know, their technology was very, very advanced. Their aviation technology was way beyond anything the United States developed.
The ancients were fascinated with Mercury all over the world. The Chinese and the ancient Mexicans and Mayans. And Mercury is usually an offshoot of gold production, actually. But yeah, when you have the ancient texts, like the Vimana texts, Mercury is clearly talked about there. So Mercury was a very important thing for the ancient people. But mercury is a deadly poison. Working with mercury, you shouldn't do that. Mercury gas is completely deadly. Mercury needs to be handled very, very carefully and in a closed environment. So exactly what ancient people were doing with mercury is kind of a mystery, although spacecraft and stuff is really the obvious thing to do with it, and other mining technologies. Mercury really comes from a mineral called cinnabar, and cinnabar is a Sanskrit word. So even geologically and mineralogically, words for mercury and cinnabar come really from ancient Sanskrit. Mercury too, in Western tradition, Mercury was the Greek god of communication. He flew through the air. And so with the ancient people, it would seem that Mercury and flight are very carefully associated with each other.